Hey guys, this is Jason. I'm reviewing Transformers 1, directed by Josh Cooley, and is an origin story, and is about Orion Pax and D-16, voiced by Chris Hemsworth and Bryan Tyree Henry, and is about them as friends, where we see that they have each other's backs and defend each other from some of the mistakes that Orion Pax can get themselves into. But then their friendship slowly fades away for the fate of Cybertron, where they later become enemies, known as Optimus Prime and Megatron. I wouldn't consider myself a huge Transformers fan, but I'm more of a casual fan where I have played some of the toys growing up, I've seen some of the animated shows, and seen a lot of the films where there are some that I liked, like Bumblebee, the 80s animated film, and Rise of the Beasts, but there are also some Transformers films that I did not like Revenge of the Fallen, and pretty much a lot of the Transformers films that were directed by Michael Bay, excluding the first film and Dark of the Moon. And I wasn't expecting a lot out of this film. It did pique my interest because of Josh Cooley, but the idea of making an animated Transformers film didn't really interest me. And that's mostly because I'm not huge on Transformers. And besides Bumblebee, there really hasn't been a Transformers film that I either really enjoyed or loved. And now that I have seen this film, that perspective has completely changed. I can now say that this is an awesome movie that's really fun to watch from beginning to end, and it pays respect to the original Transformers animated series and to fans of the Transformers in general. Now, this is directed by Josh Cooley, and I do think he's a really good director of animated films because he previously did Toy Story 4 from a few years ago, and I actually really love Toy Story 4 just as much as the other Toy Story films, and he did a fantastic job with this film. And now that I've seen both this film and Toy Story 4, I am looking forward to seeing what else he does in the future. And there are no human characters in this film. Thank God, because in most of the Transformers films, the human characters end up being the worst parts of those films, with some exceptions. And there is not one human character in this film, because when you go into a Transformers film, what do you expect to see? The Transformers. They are the stars in this film, not the human characters, and this movie proves that you don't need any human characters to understand the plot or the Autobots or the Decepticons or all that stuff. So if you love Transformers, you will definitely love this film, but even if you're not, and even if you're new to the franchise, there's still a lot to love here, because this movie does explain what Cybertron is and what the Transformers are and why they're important. So if this becomes your first experience with the franchise, then I think that this is a great first impression for you. The animation is definitely a highlight. A lot of characters in this film looks like how they did in the original 80s show, with some differences to make them look more modern. The backgrounds are very stunning to look at as well, and they're very realistic, and they give you the feeling that you're on a planet that's run by a bunch of Transformers that can turn into either cars or planes. And what really makes the animation a highlight in this film are the action sequences, and there is a lot of action in this film. It's a lot of fun to watch and can be pretty intense as well. They're intense, gritty, and they definitely keep your attention. If you want to watch this film just for the action, then the action here does not disappoint. Now let's talk about our two main leads in the film, Orion Pax and D-16, who start out as best friends and they look out for each other whenever something bad happens, or when Orion Pax is doing something reckless and stupid that's supposed to make him more than just a minor. Where Orion Pax does some things that he thinks are right, but would oftentimes get both him and D-16 into trouble. But as the film progresses and he learns more about what's going on in Cybertron, he starts to feel more wiser and mature, and he decides to do what is right for both D-16 and Cybertron, making him slowly become the Optimus Prime that we know today in both the animated stuff and in some of the live action films. And both Orion Pax and D-16 definitely make the film worth watching. You definitely buy into their friendship in the beginning of the film, and you do actually care about them throughout the whole story. But as you know, their friendship slowly falls apart and they become enemies, which you guys already knew that was happening, and it was in the trailers and it's on the posters for the film. And if you guys are already familiar with the lore and the characters of Transformers, Transformers, then you already knew that their friendship was gonna fall apart. But when I was watching the film, I was starting to feel bad that was gonna happen. And for me, the best character in this film is D-16, voiced by Tyree Henry, because he starts out as a character that does defend Orion for his mistakes, even though he's not afraid to punch him for making those mistakes. But as the film progresses and both of them learn more about the dark truth that's going on in Cybertron, it makes him lose faith in both Cybertron and in Orion, making him say and do things that make him turn to the dark side. And I loved his descent into going into the dark side, making him feel like a different person, making him no longer the good D-16 and turn into the ruthless Megatron. And Bryan Tyree Henry does a phenomenal job as the character. I even like Chris Hemsworth as Orion Pax. He makes his version of Optimus Prime feel like his own version, and there are times where he actually does his own Peter Cullen impression, making him sound more like Optimus Prime. Now, this movie isn't without its flaws. It definitely has some issues that do keep me from saying that it is a perfect Transformers movie for both fans and non-fans. Like, for one, there's a character that's introduced in the beginning that's supposed to be a nice, friendly character that a lot of the Transformers look up to, that made me instantly think that that character is a twist villain. Like, even if you don't know the lore of Transformers, you can already figure out who the twist villain in this movie is. And of course, when that twist does happen, it doesn't feel like a big shock for the rest of the film because I saw that twist coming from a mile away. So the setup for this character being a villain was very weak, and the way they present this character as a villain didn't really pay off for me. That being said, that twist does actually make the film a little better with some of the other stuff that's happening in the plot, but it doesn't really make up for that villain being predictable. And most of the humor this film goes with does fall flat. There were a couple of chuckles for me, but most of the humor just was like, most of it comes from B, voiced by Keegan Key, who I do think is a very funny comedian, and he has a couple of good laughs as B. But a lot of the humor for him, unfortunately, makes B feel like a very annoying character when he's talking really fast and calling himself a badassatron all the time. So the humor that they go with is pretty weak, and the twist villain that they have isn't a very interesting villain, and he felt very predictable. But Transformers 1 still managed to be a great Transformers film with really good animation, good voice acting, and two main leads that you care for throughout the entire film. I recommend this film to both Transformers fans and non-Transformers fans. It is that great, and it actually gets me excited because I do want to see a sequel to this film happen. And I know this movie didn't do quite that well at the box office, but after seeing this film, I do want to see how they make this story continue. And if Josh Cooley decides to come back to direct it and have the same cast and crew involved, I am on board. I know this is a little too early to say this because this movie came out a while ago, but out of all the other Transformers films we've gotten in the past, I think this might be the best one. And I know that might be too soon to say it because some would say that Bumblebee is the favorite, or some might even say that the first Michael Bay Transformers film is the best. But for me, this one is the best one because this movie has characters that you care for throughout the entire film, and it all pays off, and there are no human characters to be found. I'm gonna give Transformers 1 an A-. So guys, if you have seen Transformers 1, what did you think about it? Do you think it's the best Transformers film in the franchise, or do you think that this is the worst film and maybe worse than Revenge of the Fallen? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, if you like this video, then please leave a like and subscribe to my channel so you don't miss a thing because it helps my channel grow. Hit the notification bell so you know what other videos I'm posting. Follow me on Facebook and Instagram. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.